The silence in the command center of the Galactic Empire's flagship Dominion's Edge was absolute. Admiral HFY stood before the massive viewing screen, his forearms clasped behind his chitinous back as he watched the final moments of Earth's destruction. The planet that had dared to resist the Empire's expansion now glowed like a dying ember in the vacuum of space. "Orbital bombardment complete, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Vashti from her station. Her voice carried the satisfied tone of a job well done. "All major population centers have been eliminated. Estimated casualties, 7 billion humans." Admiral HFY's mandibles clicked in approval. The Terran species had been troublesome from the moment they'd encountered Empire scouts. Unlike the hundreds of other civilizations that had willingly submitted to Imperial rule, humans had the audacity to fight back. They'd even managed to destroy several Empire vessels with their primitive weapons before the full force of the Imperial Navy arrived. "Any survivors detected?" HFY asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. "Negative, sir. Our sensors show no life signs on the planetary surface. A few escape pods were detected fleeing the system, but they pose no threat to Imperial interests." The Admiral's second-in-command, General Korthax, approached with heavy footsteps that echoed through the bridge. "A satisfying conclusion to this campaign, Admiral. Though I must admit, the humans showed more resistance than expected for such a young species." HFY turned his large, compound eyes toward the general. Indeed, their technology was crude, but they fought with unusual determination. No matter, the Empire has dealt with warrior species before. None have ever posed a lasting threat to our dominion. What neither officer knew was that their victory would soon prove to be the Empire's greatest mistake. 3 days after Earth's destruction, the first anomaly was detected by a routine patrol in the Outer Rim territories. Captain Tisara had been commanding deep space patrols for 15 years and had never seen anything like the readings her sensors were picking up. "Lieutenant Morek, are you certain these readings are accurate?" she asked. Staring at the display that showed impossible energy signatures, the young officer checked his instruments again, his tentacles moving nervously over the controls. "Yes, Captain. The energy output is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be ... growing." Before Captain Tisara could respond, space itself seemed to tear open before their patrol ship. A massive vessel emerged from what could only be described as a wound in reality. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of an Imperial dreadnought, and it was completely black except for strange symbols that glowed with an eerie blue light along its hull. "Captain," Lieutenant Morek whispered, his voice filled with terror, "I'm detecting life signs aboard that vessel. But they're not like anything in our biological databases. The readings are ... impossible." The unknown ship turned slowly, as if noticing the Imperial patrol for the first time. Without warning, it fired a single beam of energy that completely vaporized the patrol vessel in an instant. There wasn't even time to send a distress signal. Similar incidents began occurring throughout the galaxy. Imperial ships would encounter these mysterious black vessels and simply disappear. No wreckage was ever found, no survivors ever rescued. The only evidence of the encounters came from automated beacon recordings that captured the final moments before communication was lost. Admiral HFY stood in the war room of the Imperial High Command, studying the holographic display that showed the locations of all reported attacks. Red markers indicated sites where Imperial vessels had vanished, and the pattern was becoming clear. The attacks were moving inward, toward the core systems of the Empire. "How many ships have we lost?" demanded Supreme Commander Velther, the highest military authority in the Empire. His massive form dominated the room, and his voice carried the weight of absolute power. 47 vessels confirmed destroyed, Supreme Commander, reported Intelligence Officer Nexiel. The attacks show no pattern we can predict, and we've been unable to establish communication with the unknown vessels. Velther's 6 eyes focused on the display. Have we identified the attacking species? Negative, sir. The ships appear to be of completely unknown design. However, our xenobiological analysts have made a disturbing discovery. Nexiel paused, clearly reluctant to continue. Speak, Velther commanded. The energy signatures and technological patterns bear some resemblance to theoretical human technology, but advance far beyond anything the Terrans possessed. It's as if someone took human engineering principles and evolved them over thousands of years. Uncomfortable silence filled the room. The idea that the primitive humans could have anything to do with these attacks seemed impossible, but the evidence was mounting. General Korthax stepped forward. Supreme Commander, with respect, the humans were a pre-spaceflight civilization when we encountered them. Even their most advanced vessels were no match for our smallest frigates. How could they possibly pose a threat to the Empire now? Before Velther could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Emergency lights bathed the room in red as officers rushed to their stations. Report? Velther roared. Supreme Commander, called out Communications Officer Wixen. We're receiving a transmission from the 7th Fleet. They've encountered multiple unknown vessels in the Kepler sector. Put it through. The holographic display flickered and resolved into the image of Admiral Gexton, commander of the 7th Fleet. His usually composed demeanor was replaced by obvious fear, and explosions could be seen reflected in his compound eyes. Supreme Commander, we are under attack by unknown forces. They appeared without warning and have already destroyed half my fleet. Their weapons are beyond anything we've encountered. Request immediate reinforcements. The transmission cut to static. Admiral Gexton, respond. Velther commanded, but only silence answered. Intelligence Officer Nexiel worked frantically at her station. Supreme Commander, I'm detecting massive energy discharges in the Kepler sector. The 7th Fleet's transponder signals are going dark one by one. Velther's massive form trembled with rage. The 7th Fleet consisted of over 200 vessels, including some of the most advanced ships in the Imperial Navy. The idea that they could be destroyed so quickly was unthinkable. How long until the nearest reinforcements can reach the Kepler sector? He demanded. 6 hours, Supreme Commander, replied Admiral Zexhai. Then we wait. And we prepare for war. As the hours passed, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The mysterious black ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking Imperial installations and fleets with surgical precision. Worse, they showed tactical knowledge that suggested intimate familiarity with Imperial military doctrine. Dr. Kixara, the Empire's leading xenobiologist, had been working non-stop to analyze the limited data they gathered about the attackers. She entered the war room with a datapad clutched in her primary manipulator, her expression grim. Supreme Commander, she began, I've completed my analysis of the energy signatures and what little biological data we've gathered. My findings are disturbing, explain. The technology being used by these unknown vessels operates on principles that are evolutionarily consistent with human engineering. However, the advancement level suggests thousands of years of development. This should be impossible, given that we destroyed Earth only days ago. Velther's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting these attackers are human? I'm suggesting something far worse, Supreme Commander. What if the humans we encountered and destroyed were not the full extent of their species? What if there were other human populations we were unaware of? Populations that have had millennia to develop their technology? The implications of her words hung heavy in the air. If humans had achieved spaceflight thousands of years ago and established colonies throughout the galaxy, then the Empire had just committed genocide against the descendants of an ancient and possibly advanced civilization. Impossible, declared General Korthax. Our surveys of human space were thorough. They were a single-planet species. Dr. Kixara activated her datapad, projecting holographic images into the air. That's what we assumed. But consider this. Human mythology speaks of ancient legends, stories of their ancestors traveling among the stars. We dismissed these as primitive fiction, but what if they were racial memories of actual events? The holographic display showed ancient human artwork and texts that Imperial scholars had cataloged during their initial study of Earth, images of humans among the stars. Stories of great journeys across the void, legends of returning home after long exile. According to their own histories, Dr. Kixara continued, humans believe their species spread across the galaxy in ancient times, only to lose contact with their colony worlds during some great catastrophe. What if that catastrophe was real? What if the humans we found on Earth were descendants of colonists who had lost their advanced technology? Supreme Commander Velthor studied the ancient human artwork with growing unease. If this theory is correct, then we have not destroyed humanity. We have simply awakened them. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding again. This time, they carried a different tone, the general alarm that meant the Empire itself. Supreme Commander Velthor watched in horrified fascination as the Eternal Guard fleet took position around the imperial capital world of Zephyria Prime. Their ships moved with impossible grace, sliding through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. Each vessel was a work of art and engineering that defied everything the Empire understood about technology. "Sir," whispered Intelligence Officer Nixio, "our sensors are detecting over 10,000 vessels in the immediate area, with more arriving every minute. Their smallest ships are reading energy outputs equivalent to our largest dreadnoughts." The Supreme Commander said nothing. What could he say? In a matter of hours, the empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years had been reduced to prey animals hiding in their own command center. "Admiral," Zexai approached cautiously. "Supreme Commander, the 4th and 9th Fleets are requesting permission to engage." Admiral Kexel believes a coordinated strike might be able to break through their formation. Velthor turned his 6 eyes toward the Admiral. "How many ships do we have in the inner systems?" "Approximately 15,000 vessels, sir. If we recall all our forces from the outer territories, we could potentially field 25,000 ships. Against 10,000 human vessels that have already destroyed the 7th Fleet without taking a single loss?" Velthor's voice carried bitter irony. "Admiral, I want you to observe something." He gestured toward the main display, which showed the nearest human ship in detail. The vessel was approximately 3 kilometers long, its hull composed of a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Along its length, symbols glowed with soft blue radiance, and the ship's movement through space left ripples in what could only be the fabric of reality itself. "Do you see any weapons on that ship, Admiral?" Zexai studied the display carefully. "No, sir. The hull appears completely smooth except for those markings." "Exactly. And yet this single vessel could probably destroy our entire fleet. The weapons they used against our ships left no wreckage, no debris, no trace that anything had ever existed. They are not simply more advanced than us, Admiral. They are operating on principles of science we cannot even comprehend." A new voice joined the conversation. As General Korthax entered the war room, his usually proud bearing had been replaced by something approaching panic. "Supreme Commander, we've received reports from across the Empire. Human ships have appeared simultaneously in every major system. They're not attacking yet, but they've established blockades around all Imperial worlds. What about our outer territories? The mining worlds, the agricultural colonies?" "All cut off, sir. It's as if they know the exact location of every Imperial asset in the galaxy." Dr. Kixara, who had been quietly working at her station, suddenly looked up with alarm. "Supreme Commander, that's exactly what they know. If these humans are indeed the descendants of an ancient galactic civilization, they would have detailed maps of every habitable world, every strategic resource, every point of tactical importance." The implications were staggering. The Empire had built its power by controlling trade routes and resource distribution across the galaxy. If the humans could simultaneously blockade every Imperial world, they could bring the entire civilization to its knees without firing a shot. "Sir," Communications Officer Wixen called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the human fleet." This time, the holographic display showed a different human. She appeared younger than the first speaker, though her eyes held the same ancient intelligence. She wore robes instead of armor, and her presence somehow conveyed both authority and sorrow. "Commanders of the Galactic Empire," she began, her voice carrying across the bridge with that same impossible clarity. "I am Arya Blackwood, speaker for the Eternal Guard. You have witnessed our arrival. But I doubt you truly understand what you face." The human woman gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show a map of the entire galaxy. Thousands of red points of light appeared, marking every Imperial world, station, and fleet. For 10,000 years, we have watched the rise and fall of civilizations across this galaxy. We have seen species achieve greatness and others fall to their own ambitions. Throughout it all, we have maintained one simple rule: we do not interfere in the natural development of younger races. She paused, and her expression hardened. Your empire broke that rule when you destroyed Earth. You forced us to reveal ourselves, to abandon the shadows we have dwelt in for millennia. But perhaps it is time you understood who we truly are. The galactic map changed, showing the galaxy as it had existed 10,000 years ago. Instead of the current political boundaries, vast regions were marked in blue, indicating human territory. Long before your species achieved spaceflight, humanity spread across the stars. We built cities on 1,000,000 worlds, connected by technology that could fold space itself. We were explorers, scientists, philosophers. We sought knowledge and beauty among the cosmos. The map shifted, showing the catastrophic event Dr. Kixara had theorized about. Vast sections of human space went dark, and the blue territories shrank dramatically. Then came the Great Silence, a catastrophe that severed our fastest-than-light communications, isolated our colonies, and forced each human world to survive alone. Many colonies fell to disaster, war, or simple entropy. Others adapted and thrived in isolation. The map showed the scattered human colonies, including a small blue dot that could only be Earth. Earth was one of our lost children. Cut off from the greater human civilization, they were forced to rebuild from almost nothing. We found them again only a few centuries ago, and we made a difficult decision. We chose to let them develop naturally, to reclaim the stars through their own efforts and discoveries. Arya Blackwood's voice grew cold. You robbed them of that chance. You murdered our children because they dared to defend their home against invaders. The transmission paused, and when it resumed, the human woman's expression showed a terrible resolve. The Eternal Guard has spent 10,000 years perfecting our technology, our understanding of the universe, and our ability to travel between the stars. We have learned to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. We have developed weapons that can unmake matter itself, shields that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and ships that travel by folding space around them. On cue, several human vessels in the blockade fleet demonstrated their abilities. Space around them rippled like water, and the ships simply vanished before reappearing elsewhere instantaneously. Other vessels changed their physical configuration in impossible ways, expanding and contracting like living things. But our greatest advancement has been in the realm of consciousness itself. We have learned to share our thoughts, our memories, our very souls across vast distances. When you killed our children on Earth, every human in the galaxy felt their pain. Every member of the Eternal Guard experienced their death as if it were our own. The weight of her words settled over the Imperial Command Center like a physical force. They weren't just facing an advanced civilization. They were facing a species that had achieved a level of unity and purpose beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. You believe you face 10,000 ships, Arya continued. You are mistaken. Each vessel contains the consciousness of millions of humans linked together in perfect unity. You face not an army, but a single vast intelligence with the power to reshape reality itself. Admiral Zexhai stepped closer to the display. What do you want? He asked, though he doubted the human could hear him. As if responding to his question, Arya Blackwood smiled sadly. Some among my people call for the complete destruction of your empire. They argue that any species capable of such casual genocide must be eliminated for the safety of the galaxy. Others believe we should simply take your territory and leave your people to die slowly on dead worlds. She paused, letting the terrible possibilities sink in. But I remember what Earth taught us. Our lost children, even facing extinction, chose to fight rather than surrender. They showed courage in the face of overwhelming odds. They died defending their ideals rather than submitting to tyranny. Perhaps there is something worth preserving in a galaxy that could produce such courage. The holographic display changed again, showing detailed schematics of Imperial ships and weapons. Every classified technology, every secret design, every strategic capability was laid bare. We offer you a choice, leaders of the Empire. You can attempt to fight us, and we will demonstrate why 10,000 years of advancement makes resistance futile. Or you can accept our terms for peace. General Korthax stepped forward. What terms? First, the immediate dissolution of the Galactic Empire as a political entity. Your member worlds will be granted independence and the freedom to choose their own governments. The Imperial officers exchanged glances. The Empire had been built on the principle of enforced unity. Without central authority, many worlds would descend into chaos. Second, reparations. Every species that has suffered under Imperial rule will receive compensation and assistance in rebuilding their civilizations. This demand would bankrupt the Imperial core worlds, leaving them barely able to sustain their own populations. Third, the establishment of human oversight councils on every former Imperial world. We will ensure that no species ever again faces the threat of genocide. This was the end of Imperial sovereignty. The humans were offering vassal status at best. Fourth, the surrender of all Imperial military assets. Your fleets will be decommissioned, your weapons destroyed, your military technologies transferred to human control. Complete disarmament. Even if they accepted these terms, they would be utterly defenseless against any future threat. And finally, Arya's voice carried a tone of absolute finality. The personal surrender of every individual involved in the decision to destroy Earth. They will face trial for their crimes. Supreme Commander Velthor felt his heart stop beating. She was demanding his life, along with the lives of every officer who had participated in Earth's destruction. These terms are non-negotiable, Arya continued. You have one standard day to provide your answer. Choose wisely. This will be your only opportunity for a peaceful resolution. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Admiral Zexhai was the first to speak. Supreme Commander, these terms amount to the complete destruction of everything our civilization has achieved. They're asking us to commit suicide. General Korthax nodded in agreement. The Empire would cease to exist. Our people would be scattered across the galaxy as subjects of human rule. It would be better to fight and die with honor than accept such humiliation. Dr. Kixara looked up from her console. Generals, with respect, you seem to misunderstand our situation. Fighting is not an option. These humans have had 10,000 years to prepare for this moment. They possess technology so advanced it might as well be magic. Our ships cannot hurt them, our weapons cannot reach them, and our strategies cannot account for abilities we don't even understand. She activated her display, showing tactical analyses of the human fleet. Our sensors indicate that their smallest escort vessels carry more firepower than our largest dreadnoughts. Their defensive capabilities appear to be based on manipulating spacetime itself, and their movement patterns suggest they can travel instantly across any distance. Intelligence Officer Nexiel added her own findings. Moreover, sir, they've demonstrated perfect knowledge of our force deployments, our tactical doctrines, and our strategic capabilities. They know exactly where every Imperial asset is located and how it operates. We have no secrets from them. Supreme Commander Velthor stood silently for long moments, considering their impossible situation. The empire he had served his entire life was doomed. The only question was whether it would end in negotiated surrender or complete annihilation. Communications Officer Wixen, he said finally, prepare a response to the human fleet. Tell them we require more time to consider their terms. Sir, she replied hesitantly, they specified one day. No more, then we use every hour we have. Perhaps we can find some alternative, some way to preserve at least something of what we've built. But even as he spoke the words, Velther knew they were false hope. The humans had not returned from the darkness between stars to negotiate. They had come to judge the Empire for its crimes, and that judgment had already been decided. Outside the command center windows, the human fleet maintained its perfect formation. Each ship a reminder of the terrible price the Empire would pay for awakening humanity's oldest legends. The War Council of the Galactic Empire had been in session for 18 hours. Representatives from every major military command, scientific institution, and political body had gathered in the deepest bunkers beneath Sophia Prime's surface. The atmosphere in the room was thick with desperation and the lingering smell of fear pheromones from a dozen different species. Supreme Commander Velther looked around the assembled leaders, seeing his own hopelessness reflected in their faces. Admiral Rex Thule of the Fourth Fleet sat with his massive frame hunched over tactical displays. Minister Chixara of Imperial Intelligence nervously manipulated her data tablets with trembling appendages. Even Grand Strategist Hixel, whose species was renowned for their logical coldness, showed signs of emotional distress. "Report on our military assessment," Velther commanded. Admiral Rex Thule activated the holographic display, showing the current disposition of Imperial forces. "Supreme Commander, we have successfully recalled 60% of our Outer Rim fleets. Total available forces stand at 18,000 vessels. However, our tactical analysis suggests these numbers are meaningless." The display showed recorded combat footage from the few engagements where Imperial ships had attempted to engage the human fleet. The results were always the same. Imperial vessels would fire their most powerful weapons, achieving direct hits that should have destroyed any known ship. The human vessels would emerge completely undamaged, then respond with a single energy discharge that would completely vaporize the attacking ship. "Our weapons appeared to have no effect whatsoever on their vessels," Rex Thule continued. "Meanwhile, their weapons demonstrate the ability to disintegrate matter at the atomic level. There is no defense against such technology." Minister Chixara leaned forward. "What about our secret weapons projects? The dimensional mines? The quantum disruption torpedoes?" Dr. Vexter, the Empire's chief weapons designer, shook his massive reptilian head. "Minister, I've analyzed the energy signatures from the human ships. Their defensive systems operate on principles that would render our most advanced weapons useless. The dimensional mines rely on creating localized space-time distortions, but the humans appear to control space-time itself. Our quantum disruption technology would be like throwing stones at a hurricane." Grand Strategist Hixel spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the mechanical precision of his cybernetic species. "Analysis complete. Victory probability, 0%. Survival probability in direct conflict, 0%. Recommendation: immediate surrender with whatever terms can be negotiated." "Unacceptable," growled General Morgath, whose warrior species valued honor above survival. "The Empire has never surrendered. We fight until the end, regardless of the odds." "And achieve what, General?" Dr. Chixara challenged. "The complete extinction of every species under Imperial rule? These humans have demonstrated they can blockade every world simultaneously. Even if we somehow managed to damage one of their ships, they could simply cut off our food supplies and watch us starve." The debate continued for hours, but Velther knew it was pointless. They were discussing tactics for a war they had already lost before it began. The only real question was whether they would die fighting or live as subjects of human rule. Soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Communications Officer Wixen, who had remained at her post throughout the crisis, appeared on the display. "Supreme Commander," she said, her voice strained with exhaustion, "we're receiving reports from across the Empire. The humans have begun what they call demonstration actions on 17 worlds." "Explain." "So they're showing the populations of Imperial worlds exactly what they're capable of. On Kithura Prime, they've somehow caused all the moons to stop rotating. On Nexus Station, they've reversed the polarity of the local star's magnetic field. On Draco 7, they've created artificial gravity wells that are reshaping the planet's continents. The assembled leaders stared at the reports in stunned silence. The humans weren't just demonstrating military power. They were casually manipulating fundamental forces of nature on a planetary scale. Dr. Vexter's voice was barely a whisper. These demonstrations require energy outputs equivalent to entire stellar cores. How is such power even possible? They're not just showing us their weapons, Dr. Kixara realized. They're demonstrating that they could reshape our entire civilization with the same ease we might rearrange furniture in a room. Before anyone could respond, the bunker's communication system activated without authorization. The voice of Arya Blackwood filled the chamber, speaking with that same impossible clarity that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. Leaders of the Galactic Empire, your deliberations have been noted. However, recent intelligence has compelled us to modify our original terms. The holographic display activated automatically, showing Arya's image. Behind her, other humans could be seen working at control stations that defied description, their hands manipulating what appeared to be solid light. Our historical analysis teams have completed their review of Imperial records spanning the past 3,000 years. We have documented 17 species that have been completely exterminated under Imperial rule. 43 civilizations have been enslaved and used as forced labor until their populations died out. Over 200 worlds have been stripped of all life to fuel Imperial expansion. Each statistic hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. They had known the Empire was built on conquest, but the humans had cataloged every atrocity with clinical precision. The scope of Imperial crimes against sentient life far exceeds what we initially understood. Therefore, our terms have been revised. The display showed a new map of the galaxy, but this one was different from anything they had seen before. Instead of political boundaries, it showed the galaxy as the humans intended to reshape it. The Galactic Empire will be dissolved immediately.